Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. The subject of the discourse today is willpower in connection with the law of karma and rebirth. I will read out a few Dhammapada passages and then dilate on the subject. Attahave jitang sayyo yachayang itarapaja attanantas saposasya nichang sanyatacharino. Self-conquest is far better than the conquest of others. Not even a god, an angel, Mara or Brahma can turn into defeat the victory of such a person who is self-subdued and ever-restrained in conduct. Attananche piyang janya rakkhayanang surakhitang tinnang anyatarang yamang patijaggeya pandito. If one holds oneself dear, one should diligently watch oneself. Let the wise man keep vigil during any of the three watches of the night to train one's mind. Attanameva pathamang patirupe nivesai atattanya adhanya manusasaya nakilisaya pandito. One should first establish oneself in what is proper. Only then should one instruct others. Thus the wise man will not be reproached. Attananche tatha kaira yathatya manusarasati sudanto vatadam metha attahi kiraduddamo. One should do what one teaches others to do. If one would train others, one should be well controlled oneself. Difficult indeed is self-control. Attahi attano natho kohi natho parvosiya attanava sudantena nathang labhati dullabham. One truly is the protector of oneself. Who else could the protector be? With oneself fully controlled, one gains a mastery that is hard to gain indeed. These are words of wisdom coming from this sacred lips of Bhagavan Buddha, the supremely enlightened master, teacher of both gods and human beings. Knowing oneself, the sum and substance of these verses is know thyself. If you want to control yourself, if you want to cultivate self-mastery, know yourself. That is the sum and substance of all these verses. Because ultimately what we call oneself is nothing but what one does, says and thinks. Ultimately it boils down to these threefold activities. That is action, bodily action, verbal action and mental action. Now let us see what does these three modes of actions amount to. Now body, we said bodily actions. That means various bodily movements. Walking, going, moving, working. These are various bodily movements. Now, these movements are not done by the body. Body by itself cannot move. Now for instance, a dead body, that's also a body. A dead body cannot move, cannot move itself in any manner for that matter. So body cannot move itself, yet we say bodily action. Now let us see verbal action. Means words of mouth, voices. So now voice itself cannot perform a verbal action. The words themselves cannot perform verbal action. Similarly, mental action means thinking. Now thinking is done by mind, so it is said. But what is mind? Now mind is nothing but awareness. So if the body cannot move itself, what is it that moves the body? We'll say, well, it's the mind behind that is moving the body. Now speech, the words themselves cannot perform a verbal action. What is it that does that? It's the mind behind words that performs the verbal action. But mind itself also cannot act. Why? Because mind simply means awareness, consciousness. It doesn't mean action as such. It is just consciousness. Mind is able, let us say, you are seeing with your eye. Seeing is a mental action. It's consciousness. Eye consciousness means the ability to see things, see various visible objects. Now, the eye itself cannot see. If you are reading a book and the mind is running about somewhere else, you are not aware of what is there in the book. So mere eye does not see. Something behind the eye sees. That is the eye consciousness. Let us say the mind. So mind amounts to being conscious of objects, whether it's visible object or sound or smell or taste or bodily contact or mental objects. Mind is only aware of all these various objects, external objects as well as internal objects. So mind per se by itself does not act. It is only aware of objects. Then what is it that acts? That's the question. Mind is a very great very complex mechanism indeed. If a man has created a city or created these various branches of knowledge, now human beings have created atom bomb. You can really wipe out the world with these bombs. They are so powerful. Now, if human beings have created the cities and the machines and the bombs and all sorts of things to make life comfortable or to destroy life. This is what human beings have done. Now, if a person can do all these, you see, that which actually does, that is the mind by which a human being has done all these. If the human being is so powerful, then the mind which creates all these must be far more powerful than man. So you say, yes, it's mind that does the bodily action. Yes, it is mind that does the verbal action. Yes, it is mind that does the mental action, thinking. But you go a little deeper, further, you see it's not mind that does. Mind only is aware, it's only conscious of objects and things. Something behind the mind again. So what is that? That is called what is called the concomitants of mind, the chetasikas. One such very powerful mental factor which arises together with the mind, which passes away together with the mind passing away, which continues as a mental state continues. Upada, Thiti, Bhanga. There are these three stages of a state of consciousness. A state of consciousness arises, the state of consciousness passes away, and the state of consciousness continues. So consciousness per se, all it does is just becomes aware of things, is conscious of things, both external things and internal mental pictures or objects. So mind per se does not do the action. Please keep that in your mind. Body does not do the action. Please keep that in your mind. Your speech, words, all these cannot perform a verbal action. No. Nor the mind behind, which you say mind behind does. No. What does the action is one of the concomitants. One of the concomitants which arises together with the mind. One of the mental factors known as Chetana. Chetana simply means volition, that is will. It is will to do that brings about bodily action. It is will to speak that brings about the verbal action. It is will to think and mentally create or imagine or all kinds of activities, mental activities. It is this will that does that. And will simply means intention to do. So when you do a thing, what actually does is the intention, the will, the volition. Now, let us examine what will can do. A kind of historical, historical viewpoint of this. Modern age, as we know it today, with all this mighty power, with all this tremendous ability of human beings for both good and bad, for creating all these comforts or discomforts, all this creativity of mind behind is just this will. It is said that the European powers who set about creating the modern, so-called modern age. Now, the moment they discovered that there is a thing called willpower. If you will to do something, you can do it. If you will, for instance, to cross the ocean, you can cross the ocean. So the European nations of, let's say, after 12th century or 13th century, they set about conquering the ocean. So they willed it to create some kind of a craft, a ship, or some such thing that will enable them to go to all over the world. A boat will not enable them to do that. A ship will enable them. So they created all kinds of ships, but even these ships were not enough. They were able, their maritime, maritime things which could go around the country, around the continent and so on. So once they started, when they learned a thing called gunpowder, which actually they stole from the Chinese, they discovered what is called modern weapon. What modern weapon industry starts with the discovery of gunpowder. So once they have found out this gunpowder to be the supreme weapon, they want to conquer the world. So the next thing, they said, okay, how do we do that? Boat cannot take us around. The ships also have limited capacity. Let us find out something by which we can run this boat in very high speed and under all circumstances. So the naval these machines, all kinds of machines began to be discovered and invented and made and all that. So you have the modern shipping age with machines, with all kind of naval engineering, technology. Now that enabled these nations to move about very fast and carry things from their end to any part of the world, and that ended up in political conquest of this world. Imagine 200 years ago. Now, the European nations with their maritime abilities and powers, somehow they managed to go and conquer America. Columbus did that, and so after conquering America, a whole new world opened up, all kind of possibilities. These people invented all kinds of technologies and all kinds of things, and our new modern world began to work. Europeans did, Americans did, then the Australians and all that, all white races. So with their, you see, they discovered first of all that what they need is willpower. Will to do a thing, will to gain a thing, will to master a thing. And what exactly is this will? That is karma. That is kamma. That is called action, volitional activity. So they succeeded in conquering the world. For instance, the British almost conquered the whole, all parts of the world were red color with British. So when we were young. Now then, it is this willpower again that made the Germans to create a First World War. A devastating war indeed. World War. That means all got involved into that mess of destruction. Then the Allied forces succeeded in destroying Germany and the German force, German technology, but not German ingenuity, no. Though they were defeated, again they came around and they sort of, the League of Nations got busy and they made them, you see, they charged heavy reparations, and so they started harboring hate. Say, look here, all our wealth is going away, whatever we are creating, they're knocking off these British and the Americans and the French and all that sort of thing. So let us now create weapons of a kind that we can conquer the whole world. So Hitler appeared into the scene and he developed a German state that so very powerful, very quickly occupied the whole of Europe and created the Second World War. It was a completely mechanized war, never experienced before, the human beings never do. And thereafter we got this atom bomb as a great present, a gift of the Second World War. So this very tremendous destructive power itself brought some sense into human beings. They said, look, we are capable of destroying ourselves, our willpower to destroy ourselves. Now let us have some sense, let us become sensible. And that is how Roosevelt and Churchill and Stalin got together. They say, come on, make an end of all this violence and make an end of all this conquering, this political domination and occupation of other countries and cultures and all that sort of thing. Come on, let's have a United Nations. And so on, the modern age came in. So behind every development, if you think deeply, you see, is action. And action is just willpower. The will to do something, will to gain, will to lose, will to destroy, will to build. If only you have understood the power of will, there is nothing that you cannot achieve.